In this video I'm going to take you through how we designed and constructed the framework and carcass for this fantastic kitchen. Hi, I'm Ed from Voyage Adventure Vans. Welcome to the channel. I apologise in advance, but I do swear now and again. But the first part of any design process is to spend a couple of hours with a cup of tea lying on the floor, scribbling notes that won't make any sense to me later. In this episode I'm going to show you how I built the carcass. The design has to include space for a combination microwave oven, a combined gas and induction hob, an undermounted stainless steel sink with a drop-in lid. Due to the gas regulations and flammable surfaces, we're going to need to space the hob away from the flammable surface, and we'll incorporate a stainless steel splashback. This is the initial mock-up using scraps of wood that we had lying around the workshop. It's easy to make mistakes when you're making a custom design, and at nearly £200 a sheet, the last thing you want to do is make mistakes with the actual laminated wood. So for me, getting the main parts mocked up and making sure they fit is definitely a worthwhile exercise. On this van we've left a little bit of space around the sliding door. This allows us to put a fly net in, as the customers on this van particularly wanted a fly net. So having got our dimensions right, happy with everything, the next stage is to go onto the bench and then start cutting things out properly and getting them assembled. What I've got here, I'm dry assembling the kitchen unit. This is something that I've just actually completely redesigned for this van. I didn't necessarily intend to redesign it, but the customer in this case wanted the use of an induction combination hob. So we've got gas plus induction and no oven, but they wanted a microwave. They wanted a combination microwave. So we've got microwave grill, which is going to go in here. The actual microwave unit doesn't take up any more space than a traditional gas oven, but because it's an oven microwave, it's going to get bloody hot. And obviously these things aren't designed to be built in, so if we're going to try and build them in, then we've got to make sure there's plenty of ventilation around it. So I'm allowing at least 2 inches all the way around it and about 6 inches over the top, with some vent grills above it to allow any hot air to sort of spew out. We'll really have to, perhaps we'll have to cook a pizza or something in it and try it, just to make sure that it doesn't get too hot. But the upshot is, anyway, I've had to redesign the unit, which has meant narrower shelves here. This part I've brought in from the wall a little bit. The dimensions in this gap are designed to take the stupidly expensive Dometic fridge. So our stupidly expensive Dometic fridge is going in this side, and once so that space, the size of that is not changed. So everything really extends from this point onwards. So that's our fridge. This is our sorry, I've got clamps everywhere on this. This is our sort of top section, which separates the fridge from the little sort of Staron pull-out section. So that'll go above the fridge. And then what we've done here is basically cut the crap out of everything so that we've got some extra lightweight ply panels. Being honest with you, by the time they laminated up with this 13mm board, almost 1mm laminate both sides, it's not actually that light, but it's lighter than it would be if it was birch ply. Definitely stronger and more robust than traditional caravan board, which we wouldn't use because that's almost like paper. But yeah, this is Egger laminate on a poplar cord lightweight ply, so that it's a really good product there. But it isn't that light, and we've got almost 2 sheets worth of wood cut out in this kitchen already. So, it's probably near £400 worth of wood. So what I don't want to do, I've made a couple of mistakes already cutting it out, as you do. What I don't want to do is make mistakes screwing it together. Some of it's going to be glued, so this is glued into a rebate. There's a rebate here for the shelf, and what I've got to do is go through it now carefully and basically work out where I can get away with pocket screws, where I'm going to need to use brackets because pocket screws won't work, and for some places where I can get away with glue. So, I mean, this edge here, I can't put any fixings in this section because the fridge is snug into this corner. So the fridge squeezes in here, touches there. This is our cupboard space, and to be fair, I could put some brackets on the back edge here, which won't hurt. They won't be seen. We're going to probably put some some blocks down this side. Otherwise, I'm going to have to try and clamp this at 90 degrees while I assemble it and wait for the glue to go off in there. That's not going to happen. So we're going to put probably 3 or 4 blocks down the inside of this, because our drawers will not go all the way to the back. We're going to have some pipe work that comes up the back here. Let's probably bring you in a little bit there. So this is where I'm talking about. This is inside this cupboard. We're going to have some blocks here which will hold that. This back edge here is going to sit slightly in from there, and I need to make sure that I've got a 25mm overlap on this section, because this section here of the kitchen unit is actually going to stick out. So our unit is going to come out and then drift out 25mm. I need to make sure that I don't put any fixings in here, because it would be quite easy to accidentally put a screw in here and then a day later you realise that it's actually on bloody show. So that's why I've written there 25mm on there, and make sure that I don't put a screw somewhere where it'll show later on. So I'll put my little line down there, no screw in this position. Because this shelf here is rebated 5mm into here, then the easiest way to fix that into place, dab a little bit of glue on it, but actually put a couple of screws into there. That will pull it together. What I've also done here is I've just machined a rectangle, which is the exact size of this opening. So when I'm screwing this together, instead of trying to hold roofing squares and set squares and things like that in position, I can just clamp that in, and I know that as long as everything meets that, this can't twist out a square if that's clamped in place while it's being assembled. Once it's assembled and the glue's gone off and the screws are all in place, I can take that off, no worries. But it does help the structure. Where I got to think about it, and that's where my brain is hurting at the moment, I'm just trying to work out where on here I can use screws through the end and where I can use pocket screws, because it's certainly a lot easier to fit a board like this by just popping a screw through the edge. But if I pop through screws through this edge, then they're almost certainly going to end up clashing with pocket screws the other side. So we'll use a combination of the two. Other than that, it is a case of mark out where I need to put holes. What I have done here, I'm conscious over the years that the one thing that always goes wrong is you start assembling something out of square. So what I'm trying to do, now that I'm the only person responsible for doing this or not, is make sure that I've got some squares and I've got some packers. Oh shit. And I've got some packers which are the exact width. I mean, these are going to be used in the construction, so there'll be sort of there's drawers in here, so this will be a drawer stop, and then some of these will go in here then as drawer stops, once the unit is assembled. But for the time being, if I've got one of them in the bottom and then I clamp one up here, I know that that is the same width at the top as it is at the bottom. It just saves trying to measure everything while you're trying to hold it in position. So I think hopefully that's as much of an explanation I can give for the construction. So that bit's going to go there. I'm going to pocket screw that to this center divider, put some pocket screws on there and the same on that back. This is the face for the top of the drawers that blocks off the sink. So that's going to be also pocket screwed. I've just got to look for the good side. Sometimes when you're edge banding or when you're cutting out these panels, the smaller panels need to have tabs on them, and then when you get a tab, you sometimes get a little bit of breakout on the back edge. So it does depend where you put it, but obviously if that's the back, that's going to sit there so you don't see the back, so you just need to be aware of which side you're putting the tabs. But I obviously want to put my pocket screws on the same side as the tab. These are just going to be spacers for the moment, so I don't need to use them in the construction. This is a spacer for this unit here, and it's going to sit at the back edge to hold that far corner in line, and it's pretty much going to go against the wall, so it doesn't need to be edge banded or anything like that. I'll put that as back plate lower, and then that's going to end up with pocket screws. I'm going to put them on show. There's part of me that's tempted to sort of put the pocket screws on the back side of it, but if it gets in my way for wiring once the unit is assembled and put to the floor, I can undo it. If I've screwed it from behind, then I'd have to take the whole unit out to take this out. So if I put them on display, it's not going to affect the looks because it's the back end of a cupboard under the cooker. So yeah, they can stay on display. And then this piece is going to be pocket screwed, but from the bottom. I'm actually making this bloody complicated the way I'm going at the moment. So I just try not to clash my screws. So pocket screw there, and a pocket screw there, and then on this side, yeah. So if this back wall here, if I pocket screw that, then that's going to go into there. It doesn't, yeah, that won't hurt if it's pocket screwed. Right, I say right quite a lot. Right, that's, what is it, 2, 4, 6, that's 12 down, 13 million to go. Right, I'll catch you in a bit. Got a sneaky suspicion I just fucked up there. I have just fucked up, which is a good job I fucked up on this smaller piece than that bigger piece, because that screw is probably going to be visible when the, yeah, that's almost certainly going to be visible when the fridge is open. And I should have probably stuck with my original thinking, which was to screw this from underneath and then you wouldn't see any of them. One of the occasions where a pocket hole isn't the best option. And my thought process of going through all of it and working out the best method for fixing was flawed because I didn't think of that. So yeah, but there's no way am I putting up with that bloody big hole visible inside the fridge. Shit the bed. So I now need another end panel. I think I have an option. I do have an option because I've got I've got one of these panels which I miscut. I didn't miscut it. I decided to make it bigger after I'd cut it. So I've got one of them. I was intending to use it as spares for something else, because obviously it's a big chunk of wood. And it's got this rebate in it, which in fairness, I can use the rebate as a router edge. Solved. Problem solved. And this is, I suppose, the downside of doing sort of custom work. Anytime you do something custom, with this unit, if we'd done it, you know, if it was exactly the same as we've done before, then you tend to sort of get in a rhythm of how you're making something. Whereas when you're custom making something, even though it's just some tweaks, but literally every single panel of this, there's probably 30 different pieces in this kitchen. Every single one of them is different from what we would normally use because of the knock-on effect. So the whole thing has been redesigned. And you've got to redesign where you put things as well, where you put fixings. So it's one of the reasons I don't really like doing massive custom work, because it does catch you out, and you've got to think about everything 10 times, and you inevitably end up scrapping lots of wood. I've made parts of this kitchen already out of some scrap wood, just to make sure that I got my measurements right and it works. But at some point you have to go into it and say, right, okay, sod it, we're now into the £200 a sheet wood. At which point you can still make a cock-up and pay the price, as it were. As long as we don't run out of wood, we're okay. As long as Adrian from Leisure Max isn't on another holiday when I need some more, we'll be okay. Does like his holidays, that boy. Before I get too far, don't put one there. No, no, no. Otherwise that will be a pain in the arse, because I've made that panel twice already. So and there's one I fucked up earlier. So I can now use this piece to replace this piece, because it's exactly the same size. Just wiping off the plastic mouldings off the bottom. They're not very good actually on these. I don't want it to sit sort of proud, because I'm only fitting them to the one side. Just want that to be absolutely bang on with the bottom. I'm actually just going to mark this 25mm from the edge, or the inside edge of the edge band. Yep. 25mm tape. 25mm tape will be a perfect marker. I'm lining that up with the edge of my edge band in there. I think that should work. So we've got this piece attached. I'm now just putting it on top of the base, and then I'm just going to try and line it up so that this edge is 2mm in from this edge band in, so that you don't see, if I put it there, that you can basically see a gap between the two. If I'm honest with you, you could round it over, but we haven't measured it up for that. So this one is going to sit 2mm in there, so that that sits flush to this piece, and then the edge banding starts the other side of it. So aesthetically, I think it looks a little bit better, but matter of opinion. That's the way we do it. It works. So one of those things where there's probably 3 or 4 ways to achieve a look. That once I've got this back edge in, I can make sure that this dimension is the same as this. I want this totally flush at this end, so we'll start on this one. That's the spacer for that one, so as long as that sits in there nicely, bring that across to there, and that should mean that that is square. I will put a square on it as well. The reason I've gone over to this table rather than there is that that table is a little bit not level. The CNC bed should be flat, so I won't have any issues. The reason we're cutting so much of this away is obviously just to what did Colin Chapman used to say, was to build in lightness, or something like that. I think that was one of it. Be my sink plinth, which at that point is a perfect width, and I want this one to be level with this side, so that one has to be on this edge band, so that'll be there, so it's the same in line with this panel here. But then on this panel we're 25mm back, which might actually translate to 27mm because we haven't allowed for the edge band. Must have got to my half-hour filming point. Right, so this is the base for the cooker side. So again, we'll be just setting that back 2mm. That's going to sit in there. This one has to be pocket screwed from underneath. I haven't really got a choice on that one, so we'll have to tip this on its back or on its side, one of the two. Flip that over, stick that on, put it back down, and then carry on as we were. So we've now got this end, which as long as I push, the back of it isn't a replica of that, but the front end is. So as long as I push it, just to make sure that my alignment is good and square, I cut this yesterday, so that should be the exact size of that opening, and that's perfectly square. So if I put a clamp on each side, then in theory I can't pull this out of square. Couldn't see me then. I was closing this eye and eyeing those up across the face to see if they are square or pulling. They shouldn't be because it's on a flat table. But before glue dries, that's when you've got a chance to give something a bit of a squeeze or a twist or a pull, whatever you need to do to line it up. What I'm going to do is leave this jig in place till this glue goes off, and then we should be good. This is my vent panel. So what I've done, I've left the center in it so that when I'm edge banding, to be honest with you, I try to edge band that without that center in it would be a disaster, and I'm sure people who edge band have tried it, and the edge bander falls in there, the bearing starts slipping off, the cutter digs in, and you end up making it about 4 times. So I've left that in, but that's basically going to sit in there on the face, but with a cheek down either side to give some ventilation around the microwave. So that's in the middle, but behind it, as a way of a spacer and a support, so I've got something to stick this to. I'll probably actually silicone it in, so in case somebody wants to pull it out later on, they haven't got to worry about screws. And sometimes you've got to put your last piece in a, what's the word I'm looking for, sympathetic manner. I mean, if we were one of the mainstream motorhome manufacturers, it's probably better not to mention any, but all they'll do is just whack 3 screws in and then put 3 bits of paper grained, sort of wood effect looking tape over the top. But we don't like to do that. We like to try and hide more or less every last fitting. There's a few that we can't hide, but if we can hide them, we'll hide them. So sometimes just putting that on with a couple of dabs of silicone means that if someone ever needs to pull it off to get to all the screws, they haven't got to break things, but it'll stay on. Silicone's pretty good for holding lightweight things on. We could use Velcro, but it starts to stick out. Anyway, so this is going to go behind. So as long as I've got 15mm in front of that, but behind so I have 15mm space in, and then this, and then we're good. So it doesn't really make any difference which way this goes. It's just designed to go in there with a couple of pocket screws. What I've done, I've just got another piece that's the same size to stick to it, just so I can clamp it in place. No, I just got a reference on the front then. I'm going to come back as an octopus. That's the answer. Just want to get it really nice and flush with the top. Right, that's been set now for an hour or so while the glue's gone off in there and back there. So I think we can take the clamps off. It should be fairly solid because we've now put the top beams in. So they're only a couple of inch beams, but they support it, but they're also lightweight. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's probably getting on for 20 kilos, I guess. But that's not bad really for what is a 6 foot long, sort of 3 foot high structure. So yeah, but there's absolutely no bounce in that whatsoever. So that's really good. Really pleased with that. All I got to do is basically just put 2 screws in here just to hold these ends nice and solid. So lovely. That's nice and snug on the bottom, so that'll be perfect. Now the downside is I'm going to have to try and get this in the van single-handedly in order to make sure it fits before I go any further with it. So that might not be fun. In fact, I think what I shall do is leave that until one of the lads comes round. And normally a couple of the boys pop around on a weekend, so whilst we're enjoying a donut and I didn't say that, cup of coffee and something healthy, then we'll put this in the van. I obviously did try this in the van and it fitted perfectly. If you found the video useful, then please consider liking and subscribing. In part 2 of this video, I'll be covering the making and fitting of the drawers. In the next video we will be covering the construction and design of 5 drawers, complete with drawer fronts, runners, how we spaced them and how we fitted them. In the third video I will be covering the Staron solid surface worktop and the pull-out worktop extension. So if you've made it this far, thank you very much for watching.